Namaskar. Today I am going to talk about the horoscope of Kashmir and discuss on what we see ahead, the road ahead for Kashmir. Now, in mundane astrology, whenever we read the charts for countries and states, we have a certain time that we look at for casting the horoscope. For the birth horoscope of independent India, everybody knows 15th August, midnight, 1947. Now, how is it possible that we can look at the chart for the state of Jammu and Kashmir? Because the instrument of accession, which is a legal document, was signed by Maharaja Hari Singh at a particular day, a particular time. That time is looked at to ascertain the future of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, this instrument of accession gave the Indian Parliament the power to legislate with respect to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, what is the chart? What is the date and what is the time? 27th October 1947, 13:21 hours, Srinagar. These are the birth details. Now, let's look at the chart. This is a Capricorn Lagna chart with two malefics in the 7th house, Saturn and Mars. Jupiter in the Rahu-Ketu axis in the 11th house. The 6th Lord and the 8th Lord, Mercury and Sun respectively, with the 10th and 5th Lord, Venus. Now, if you look at this chart, Mars is in the 7th house, debilitated with the Lagna Lord. This is clearly showing the trouble-ridden history of Kashmir, its past and its future. This chart, the Lagna is in the Uttarashada nakshatra. Uttarashada is a nakshatra of Sun. Sun here is the 8th Lord. In mundane astrology, the 7th house is looked at for war, for violence. Even when a country goes to war, if we look at the Prime Minister's chart, we will see the 7th house afflicted by malefics. And I could do another chart, another session later on discussing the charts of Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi and how the maleficence of the 7th could be seen when there was war with China and Pakistan respectively. That will be an interesting study and I will surely do that chart. Now, in this particular chart, as I said, the 7th house is looked at for war and for violence. Here we have two malefics in the 7th house. Both these malefics, interestingly, are in Sarpa dreshkona. A chart has 36 dreshkonas. Each dreshkona is 10 degrees. The second and the third dreshkona of the watery sign of Karka come under the Sarpa dreshkona. That will create conspiratorial intrigue to this violence, and we know that has been the case for Kashmir. Pakistan is it's almost a proxy war that Pakistan has fought with the state of India. Both Mars and Saturn are in the nakshatra of Ashlesha. Ashlesha, whose lord is Mercury. Mercury here is the 9th and the 6th lord. Remember, when malefics are in a particular nakshatra, the lordship owned by that planet gets affected. So, if you look at this chart, you will see that the 9th house per se is not much afflicted. But there are two malefic planets in Sarp Dreshkon in Ashlesha. Ashlesha too has that reptilian quality. And therefore, the 9th house is under major trouble. It is under siege. And there are religious overtones to this trouble, and that can already be seen. Saturn for a few months has come into Aquarius. It came into Aquarius on the 29th of April and will stay here till the 15th of July. Again, Saturn will come into Aquarius in January 2023. Now remember that Saturn covers this entire spectrum of the 12 signs in a zodiac in 30 years. It's a very slow moving planet. Now, let's go 30 years back, and we know the violent history of that period. Saturn is again coming into Kumbha. Saturn in Kumbha will come into the second house of this chart and will aspect the fourth house. The 4th and the 10th are in Rahu Ketu axis in transit. Rahu is in the 4th and Ketu is in the 10th. It's on the Aries Libra axis. Natal Saturn from the 7th house is also aspecting the 4th house. Okay. Now let's look at one very interesting point. Here, the 6th Lord Mercury, the 8th Lord are conjunct with the 10th and 5th Lord Venus in the 10th house. So the 4th house is getting the aspect of the 6th and the 8th Lord. This is a clear sign which shows changes to the boundaries of this land, and it will happen again and again. And I have always said that Pak occupied Kashmir will come back to India, and I will discuss that further. Now, from mid-February to mid-July, the dashas that we see, and that is coming to, as in let's look at what's happening now. So, in the here and now. So, mid-February to mid-July is a troublesome period for Kashmir, and we see polarization. We see that the central government, there were initiatives by the central government of settling Kashmiri Hindus back into Kashmir, but this has not been a successful initiative. It is not the intention, but the time, the Kal Chakra is not favoring this movement. After mid-July 2022, things will be slightly better. But if we look at it very carefully, then from mid-August, where we start the Yogini Dasha of Saturn, and more so from the 20th of October 2022, that is a very important date. From there on, there seems to be mayhem, violent and a bloody fight in this land. It seems to be going on uninterrupted from 20th October 22 till almost the beginning of June 2023. Now I'll share another interesting point here. Even in the Mahabharata, Karna says to Lord Krishna that when Ketu enters the Chitra Nakshatra, then the ruling king loses the battle. It's a time for the fall of the kings. Now, there are a couple of things that Karna says to Lord Krishna. I can again do another video which talks about why he quotes, or rather gives astrological reasons that Duryodhan and the Kauravas will lose this war. And it's a very interesting study. We could discuss that another time. Now, Ketu, as we all know, is transiting in Libra. Now, what is the point, the starting point of Chitra Nakshatra and the ending point? 23 degree 20 minutes in Virgo to 6 degree 40 minutes in Libra. That is the frame of the Chitra Nakshatra. Now, Ketu being in retrograde motion, when it entered Tula, so it started moving from 30, 29 degree and so on and so forth. In mid-June 2023, Ketu moves into the Chitra Nakshatra. That is not signaling a good period at all. Now that is not just for Kashmir, that is going to be for countries, many other countries as well. We will discuss that at a later point in time. But here, because the fourth house is under siege in that axis and Saturn has that aspect, hence we are discussing Ketu's entry into Chitra Nakshatra. Now, again from October mid 2023, the problem sort of aggravates itself. Please note, Saturn in Kumbha, Saturn in Aquarius will stay in that sign for approximately 2.5 years. So mid 2025. Saturn in Kumbha is not going to be good for this horoscope at all. As I said, let's go 30 years back because Saturn completes the full circle in 30 years. And we know the troubles that Kashmir faced 30 years back. We are hovering very close to that point. Saturn is retrograde even now in Aquarius and then has retrograded. It's coming back to Capricorn. We are hovering at that point. This is not a good period. So as I said, from August, the downslide is gaping. From mid-October 2022, 20th October is a date that I have given, 20th October 2022, the problem is building up in Kashmir. Pakistan could contribute towards a troublesome period for our country. Terrorist activities will build up in that period. So, from October 22 on to June, and again from June we have Ketu's entry into Chitra Nakshatra, and then the dashas that are running are showing a further downslide from mid-October 2023. And as I've said, that juxtaposing it with Saturn in Kumbha, we know that mid-year 2025 is going to be problematic. Now, when you look at a chart, we don't just look at one dasha. So, Vimshotri, Char, Yogini. In this particular case, we will also look at Dvisaptati Samadasha, which is a conditional dasha which is used when Lagna Lord is in the 7th house or the 7th Lord is in the Lagna. If we look at these dashas, then in Yogini, Saturn's dasha is going to start in August 2022. Vimshotri is a very important dasha. Please note that Vimshotri dasha of Mars, the debilitated Mars with the Lagna Lord Saturn in the 7th house of war, continues till June 2025. So the juxtaposition is continuing. Saturn in Kumbha, mid-year 2025. Mars dasha, mid-2025. With a couple of other contributing factors. So till mid-2025, there is definitely going to be mayhem. So the terrorists will also not sit quiet. They will also create a lot of trouble and the Indian forces will fight them. But troubles are brewing, if not brimming. If one looks at the Sthira Dasha, the Jaimini Sthira Dasha, then what we see clearly troubling us till mid-year 2025, I would say I would give it an extension and go almost till mid-year 2026, till June 2026. So, not just till mid-2025, almost till mid-2026, the problems are immense. So, if we think that we are going to settle Kashmiri Hindus in that land and they will be able to live peacefully, that's not happening. Not because the intention is not there, but because, as I said, the Kal Chakra, the Kal at this point in time, the time is not ripe for this to happen because that land is bloodthirsty right now. So, there is no way that there will be quiet and peace and harmony. No way at all. In fact, I have mentioned October 20th, 2022. Please note that in Vimshotri, the Mars Ketu Dasha starts from mid-year mid-December 2022. So the problem is only intensifying. From October 22, the problem is only intensifying. Again from December, again from June, again from October 2023. And it goes on till mid-year 2025, and even as, and there is still, the pushback will be immense from the Indian Army. After 2025, there is a changeover. Okay, but I'm still saying mid-year 2026. Note that after mid-year 2025, Saturn will move into Pisces. Pisces here is the third house of this horoscope of Kashmir and is housing the seventh lord Chandrama. So the Sade Sati will start for this chart. The Sade Sati will start for this chart, but also know that even the coming years, this is going to be a bloody war, because Saturn in Aries is also not going to be good. So even though we are saying there is going to be pushback from 25 and 26, but the clouds of a war are looming large even after that, even though the Indian state will be able to completely put its foot down. Even then, the clouds of war are looming large, and one can see that 27, 28, again from 27, 2027, mid-2027, end of 2027. Saturn in Aries is not a good time for this chart. So, but I'm saying there is a pushback from the government after mid-year 2025, more so from 2026, but again clouds of, the thickening clouds of many crises are looming large over this land. Now, if we look at, I wanted to look at this particular event in this chart. Now, if we look at the abolition of Article 370 on the 5th of August in 2019, what is the dasha that this chart was running at that point in time? Let's understand that, because that will give you another, you'll be able to understand another nuance. From the dasha that was running at the time of the abolition of Article 370, which also had the J&K reorganization bill, and J&K and Ladakh were declared as two union territories, and the special status that was enjoyed by the state of J&K was scrapped. Now the dasha running in this chart at that point in time was Mars, Rahu, Venus. Now, if you look at the Navansh for this horoscope, you will see that Mars and Rahu are in the 11th house. Now, remember that in mundane astrology, Medhini Jyotisha, Ekadash Bhav, the 11th house, is looked at for ordinance, for bills, for constitutional amendments. And the 8th, Venus is the 8th lord of D9, also shows Radd, abolition, scrapping of something. So the 11th and 8th combination that is coming here is showing the abolition of a previously held, of a bill. Now juxtapose that, where are constitutional amendments looked at from? Yes, of course, the 11th house, but not from the horoscope of Indian independence. It is looked at from the horoscope of the Republican chart of India. So you draw a parallel with the Republican chart of India. The Republican chart of India, I'll share the details with you. 26th January 1950, 10:25 AM, New Delhi. Now, this is a Pisces Lagna chart. Jupiter Venus in the 11th house. Now, if you look at 5th August 2019, you will see that the dasha running for the Republican chart is Jupiter Venus, both in the 11th house of constitutional changes and amendments. Venus for this chart, this Pisces Lagna chart, is also the 8th lord. So you see again the combination of the 11th and the 8th is coming, and if we draw parallel with the Republican chart and the horoscope of Kashmir, one can clearly see the point. Now, when this article was abolished, Pakistan had released a map of India where the Siachen Glacier, Jammu and Kashmir, Junagadh, even parts of Gujarat were part of Pakistan, and the Ladakh boundary was fused with China and referred to as undefined frontiers. So that is the kind of retaliation that Pakistan had when Article 370 was abolished. So in the Rajya Sabha, 125 had favoured this bill and 65 were against. So within our own system, we have people who were much against the abolition of Article 370. And Pakistan too was much against it. I've said it many times. When a soldier dies in war, in the Ranabhumi, the gates of heaven, Swarga, are open to him, because such is his sacrifice that Ranjandika is supposed to welcome him into the gates, him or her, into the gates of heaven. So, whatever I might be doing, even if I am in the political arena, if I betray my motherland, if I'm part of this Deshdroh, then this karma is totally mine. Nobody will later come on and say, oh, by the way, you were in politics and yeah, you were allowed to be towing this line. Nobody. You will carry your suitcase of this accrued papa, of this immense sin with you, lifetime upon lifetime upon lifetime. So, Janani Janma Bhumishcha Swargadapi Gariyasi. The mother and the motherland are equivalent to heaven. So if you are loyal to your motherland, you eat of this land, you live here. This is your Moolasthana. You have to be loyal, you have to be faithful to this land. Whatever be your job, whatever be your employment, nothing at all allows you to betray your motherland. That sin is yours and will continue to be with you. Anyway, I will discuss one last chart here and end this discussion. Omar Abdullah. And I could even discuss this chart separately as a separate session, but let's look at it here and understand it like a glance on this chart. 10th March 1970, 1858, Roche, England. This is a Leo Lagna chart. Now, when Article 370 is abolished, Omar Abdullah runs the dasha of Rahu Jupiter. Jupiter is the 8th lord in the 3rd house. Please note, in Pakshi Dreshkon. Dreshkonas are looked at, and they must be looked at because they provide some very significant, they reveal something which is very significant. So, this 8th lord in Pakshi Dreshkon has the mutual aspect of the 12th lord Chandrama, of the 4th lord Mangal, and therefore it is showing 12th is coming into play because of house arrest. Please note. Now Omar Abdullah runs a dasha of Rahu and Saturn, and Saturn in Aries with Mars and Moon is a very troublesome period. From August 2024, again Omar Abdullah is going to run a slightly, I shouldn't say, he's going to run a bad period. And 27 onwards, from the year of 2027 onwards, we see the start of a very troublesome period for Omar Abdullah. He could even be leaving the country, and there is almost like a 5-year period which is showing complete troubles. Everybody has Saturn and Mars sitting somewhere, but certain combinations and conjunctions make it very fatal and crucial. Prime Minister Modi's oath-taking chart, and I will not discuss too many details, but I'll just end it with this one. 30th May 2019, 7 p.m. New Delhi. You see a lot of malefics in the second 8 axis. Now that's an interesting point which shows very many strong decisions taken and the term is still continuing. Okay, so one can expect some further action and some more amendments. I shouldn't say amendments. There is going to be some strong action is still to come. So with that, but that is inherent in the chart that PM Modi has in terms of his oath-taking chart. So that shows his tenure as PM. So one knows that some more tough decisions will be taken in this tenure. And with that, I end this discussion. Namaskar.